Welcome back to The Line. 2018 was a banner year for tourism here in New Mexico. According to the Tourism Department Secretary, visitors to the Land of Enchantment spent a record $7.1 billion here last year. That's a jump of 7%. But what's behind that increase? Some suggest a new focus on year-round tourist possibilities here in our state and a focus on some of the lesser-known attractions and opportunities. And Tom, that may be all be true. By all our accounts, our marquee event, Balloon Fiesta, was also faring pretty okay. How'd you guys work out this year?
It was a great event.
Okay.
We had a lot of great days of flying. We got blown out on Thursday on some of the events, some weather impacts, but overall just down slightly. Last year it was 888,000 people or estimated guest visits. This year we were right at 886.
Okay.
So not too much of a drastic difference, but
Right.
but anyway, what the numbers that I think everybody should be really focused on are basically what are the lodging. In city of Albuquerque, Santa Fe, what are their lodgers' tax receipts like for the month of October, and then you'll start to see what were the admissions like in the gates at the different museums and such. So, but it was a great event. It's a marquee event for the state and something that gets people out and about around New Mexico.
So from your point of view, being connected with Balloon, when you look over the entire state and our tourism and the bump you see, what do you attribute it to? Is it one thing in your mind's eye, or is it just a combination of a lot of things?
It's probably a combination of a lot of things. Finally, the industry has something to rally around with New Mexico True, which started under the Martinez administration. Secretary Schroyer provided a very compelling case study to Economic Forum, where basically she made the case of basically saying, tourism is an industry, but it's much larger than tourism. It really has a way to generate economic development on a larger statewide basis. And a lot of folks in the tourism industry have looked at tourism as saying, oh, that's the first date, and that will get them back to the state to hopefully come and relocate their business. So I like the larger vision, but and I like the fact that the Secretary is not abandoning a successful New Mexico True program.
I'm interested, Laura, in your idea about, I hear a lot from counties and other folks out there. A lot of the tourism focus tends to be northern New Mexico, a lot of skiing, mountains, it makes sense. Santa Fe and Albuquerque, but in southern parts of the state, they don't get a lot of juice when it comes to tourism dollars. Is that a fair assessment? And second part of that, they want some more control about how those monies get spent.
I think that's probably fair. I think that certainly when I travel, people always think of Santa Fe and they think of Taos. I get questions a lot about Santa Fe and Taos.
Sure.
Albuquerque, everybody knows about. But very little about southern New Mexico. So I do think that there's an issue there in terms of trying to publicize. I mean, there's great areas to visit down there, a lot of things to do. When I was at the New Mexico Green Chamber of Commerce, we worked a lot on doing work around the outdoor recreation economy. And so we also, as part of that, worked on the Organ Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument down there. And it was right after the Rio Grande del Norte National Monument in Taos and Rio Arriba had been created. So this new one down south created a little bit of a bump, I think, in some outdoor recreation. But I think there needs to be, more resources put into it at the statewide level to try to make sure that people understand that, when you're coming up here, when you're coming into New Mexico, take a trip down I-25, go check out Las Cruces, go check out the Organ Mountains. White Sands, I think, is definitely an area that a lot of people appreciate and like to go to. Just it's an amazing area. So, but I think that's a fair assessment. I hope that we can come up with a more statewide approach to tourism dollars.
Exactly right. Michael, it goes without saying, and this is always tricky to sort of ask and put out there, but our Native American culture, our Native American population is a big part of our tourism here. Are Native Americans receiving some of the largesse here from all these tourist dollars? How much of that $7.1 billion is getting in pockets of Native American folks around our state?
Well, I think I'd love to see somebody respond to that question myself. The bottom line is historically, when we look back historically, in terms of the railroad, and a big driver in the past, historically, has been Native culture, Native traditions, Native festivals, and it continues to still be a draw. If you look at Indian Market, with 150,000 tourists come in for that, for a 2-day event. Many of them international tourists, not just domestic. And then when we look at the Gathering of Nations here in Albuquerque, also not just a domestic program, but draws international participants, largest powwow in the Americas. So I would hope, I guess my concern and hope would be that in whatever the state is doing, or whatever the Chamber of Commerce is doing, or whatever these individuals, that there is some conversation going on already. And if not, then there needs to be a conversation with everyone, I think, at the table, be it somebody from the South, be it the Hispanic community, be it the Native American community. I think the more people that are on board and understand what the objective is, and that all parties benefit in some form or fashion, I think will increase the success and potentially build some infrastructure in all of the communities, because there are a lot of people, I think, New Mexico, you know, in many ways, we talk about the issues of disparities and many of the negatives, but when it comes to culture, tradition, language, culinary, New Mexico's got it, and the landscape as well. And we need to really focus on that, but make sure that everybody's benefiting.
That's right. That's right. You know, Julianne, Michael just anticipated a question I had for you. It's almost like this in lieu of, and that is crime obviously is a big issue that we worry is going out to the rest of the world in our reputation. Crime, crime, crime all the time. But it's not stopping people from coming here and spending money, is it?
There's crime everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting, isn't it?
I mean, yeah.
I like the way you put that.
I think it's, you know, wherever you live, you're going to feel the sting, or it's going to feel a little close to home. And we are certainly all feeling the sting of the challenges in Albuquerque. And people in Santa Fe kind of like to do this, well, we're not them thing, but we're going to have a story in a couple of weeks here, I think, that will enlighten everybody a little bit about some of the crime trends that we're seeing, that the violent crime is going up in Santa Fe as well. So one of the things I think is noteworthy about this discussion is that it's not just the tourism department and the New Mexico True campaign that's really responsible for and working for visitors and for other kinds of development in our state. So like the new Office of Outdoor Recreation, it's actually parked in economic development. You know, then you've also got the Department of Cultural Affairs, which has not just the state museum system, but all of these historic sites. And there's some of these smaller sites in rural parts of the state that don't get as much sort of love. They're not the bandolier, they're not the balloon fiesta, but, you know, going to Fort Union is also really
Excellent
fun.
example.
You know, catching a ride on the Cranberries and Toltec coming up. They're going to have their big, you know, Santa Claus thing coming. All those little
Deming duck races.
There you go. Yeah,
It's an international event,
Third
actually.
weekend in August.
There we go.
They all kind of come together to they build on the edges of these big things that happen, and I think that that's responsible for some of this change that's been recorded.
You know, Julianne makes a good point here, Tom, and that is, you know, it's hard to develop things that are like so general they'll appeal to everyone. It's not how the world works. If you think about maybe even the Lowrider Museum in Espanola, right? It's a really interesting idea. I mean, why not have lots and lots and lots of very targeted little things that every community can highlight? That seems to be an interesting way to go, you know?
Yeah, you know, the successful destinations are authentic destinations. And, you know, when you look at the Lowrider Museum, it's authentic to the community.
That's right.
And what a wonderful story to tell, because when you actually go out to, you know, anybody who's traveled in or out of the Albuquerque Sunport has actually had a chance to experience part of the lowrider culture.
They have an exhibit right now.
Yeah,
Right.
people are always
Really
taking
cool.
pictures, selfies with them and stuff. So, yeah, so authentic communications, authentic representations of communities, and even the quirky. You know, as Laura mentioned, you know, the Deming duck race in Roswell, the Roswell UFO encounters. You know, ducks aren't the first thing I think of when I think of Deming, but now they are, and aliens definitely not
Well, hopefully it's
Roswell.
me that you
Well,
think
yeah,
of.
and Laura Sanchez-Rebay.
I love it. Well, shopping, you know, one of the breakouts here is shopping and retail had a $1.2 billion hit with this. So we're talking, again, Julianne made the point too, it's not just about people flying in and going out. This is critical for people that own mom and pop stores, restaurant, all that kind of stuff, isn't it? It's amazing when you think
Huge.
about it.
I mean, it
Yeah.
means so much for them to be able to plan year round
That's
when
right.
you get a bump. that then
right.
helps you, weather those other times that there's a downtime. And so for any business, small business, if they're able to capitalize on visitors for the Balloon Fiesta or other local events that are happening, I mean, it really makes the difference in terms of making or breaking their business long term.
That's right. I haven't skied, Julianne, in like 30 years. I mean, I don't dislike skiing, we just haven't done it. Are we seeing some sort of rebound in your...
Well, last season was spectacular in Santa Fe. The season before was, the famous you're on the lift and you see more dirt than snow under your skis. But last season was wonderful.
Right.
I'm not really a great meteorologist kind of predictor in that way, but I think certainly people are hoping for another good snow season. I mean, we've seen Taos Ski Valley made some big investments in the last couple of years in modernizing and making things fancy up there. So I think people in northern New Mexico are really hoping for good snow this year.
Cool. It's important for our state, too, the snow stuff. You can find out much more about the tourism boom on our website, NewMexicoInFocus.org. And be sure to check in with the show and offer your thoughts on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube pages, of course. Up there right now, you can hear the line panel's reactions to the news that Maggie Toulouse-Oliver is dropping out of the U.S. Senate race and endorsing her opponent, Congressman Ben Ray Lujan.